Hey, good morning, Facebook and Get Inspired Michiana. I'm Diane Bennett with Inspired Homes, and you are watching Facebook Live and our Friday morning story of Life Inspired. And we have a great guest today, David Gilbert, my dear friend, and fabulous IT inspirer. I mean, you take care of all our IT stuff. Thank you so much for what you guys do at Unitech.
Yeah.
We're so grateful.
Yeah.
And so I always want to tell the audience everything. Sometimes we have a first-time watcher, so if you've never seen Facebook Live before, what we do on Friday Morning Life Inspired is our guest, David, is going to talk to us about just really walking with God, basically. But most of the time, there's a backstory, there's a life was going along, there's a ... and then God moment in everyone's lives. Most people have numerous turning points in their lives, and then they're walking inspired. So David's got some stuff he's willing to be very vulnerable and share with us, and I'm grateful to you. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here, Diane.
So tell us about some backstory stuff that gets to the turning point.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Bible-believing Christian home. Church every Sunday, church on Wednesday nights. My parents prayed with us as a family. They both studied the Bible. So I grew up in the church. I grew up around other believers. So I, in terms of Bible knowledge and understanding, who God is and what our purpose is, I could probably just recite things right off the back of my head.
Right. You were born and raised, and so there shouldn't be a turning point. It was always...
It should have been that
straight and to the left, right?
Yeah, yes. But I think that a lot of young people struggle with the same thing where they have all that, and maybe they believe that God's real, and they know right and wrong, they know what they should be doing. But because they haven't sought after God hard, and because they haven't really experienced a moment where God needed to step in or change or really save, reveal himself to them. For me, I just kind of did my own thing. Mm-hmm. I believed that God existed. I knew that he was real, but I didn't need him for so many years of my life because everything was good, and so I didn't rely on him for anything. So by the time I got to junior high was when I started realizing that, hey, a lot of these decisions that I can make for myself without God are a lot of fun. And
I like this better than God.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. But unlike some other people, I didn't just say, hey, I'm going to walk away from church. I stayed involved in church. And I felt like I was living two separate lives because none of my believing friends, no one at church knew, what I was going out and doing with my friends. And they didn't realize that I wasn't, walking with God and doing the right thing, that I was making poor decisions. And so I felt very hypocritical, and not necessarily so much at the time. I didn't have as much guilt at the time as I probably should have, but I just went through high school and kind of out of high school with this just two separate lives and all this baggage and all this sin that I was involved in that I just didn't talk about with anybody else. And it's so funny. There's so many facets, so many layers of this story, but I'll try to keep it as clear and even as I can. But my wife and I started dating when I was in high school. We met in junior high, and she fell in love with me when we were 13, and then I fell in love with her when we were 14 or 15. So we started dating, and gosh, we're so in love. We're gonna get married, this and that, and then. It was like at one point in time when I think I was 16 or 17, she's like, no, I'm just not interested in this guy anymore, right? Like I just don't want anything to do with him. And she couldn't understand why, and I couldn't understand why. And so she broke up with me, and I went off and did my own thing. And what she didn't realize at the time was that the decisions I was making at that point in time
making you different.
were making me different. And had we been together, it would have been very harmful for her, very toxic for her. And I think that's a moment where God kind of stepped in and said, hey, I want to spare Megan this heartache and this pain. So traveling down, a few years later, we stayed in contact, and we weren't super close for the entire time, but we stayed in pretty good conversation most of the time. After I graduated high school, the cracks started to widen a little bit more, and the things I was doing started to become more exposed.
And you couldn't hide them anymore.
I couldn't hide them anymore. And it got to some moments where I really had to stop and think, what am I doing with my life? And some of the decisions were not just going out drinking with the guys, right? They were life-altering decisions, and I just wasn't seeing that at the time that, hey, this could potentially affect me, 30 years from now. So the first moment, the first real turning point I remember, and this is so odd. I did a lot with my brother. He would always take me out. We'd go out to the mall or whatever, and we just got a lot closer after high school. And
He's older?
He's older. He's 4 years older than me, my brother Nathan. And we were standing in Meijer one night, because we would always go to Meijer and get food and then go get a Redbox movie and go home and watch it, right? So we were there for that. And we started talking about something, talking about Megan, my wife Megan, or something like that. And I made a comment to the effect of, I just need to get my crap together, don't I? And I think that's verbatim what I said. And he goes, yeah, you really do. And that's such a small moment, but it sticks out to me like a sore thumb still, even now, years later.
You can just picture this night that you're sitting there.
Yeah.
Is it in the car that you're sitting there?
We're
with your
actually
brother?
standing in Meijer when this conversation happens. And so after that, I did a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of praying, and I feel like I really started to move the pendulum of my life at that point. I started making better decisions, but I wasn't fully committed to stopping everything that I had been doing prior to that. And so my now wife and I, Megan, began dating at that time, short about a week after that conversation with my brother. And things were going really well. We were, doing devotions together, and I felt like I was on the right track. And then I had another turning point where some of my previous addictions and previous problems that I had been dealing with surfaced, and where I got in some trouble with the law. And it was a horrible moment for my wife. It was a horrible moment for,
because she didn't know.
She didn't know. Mm-hmm. She didn't know. And I think that was my lowest point in my life.
When you were in trouble with the law.
Thinking that, maybe I'll lose her. Who's going to find out about this at my church, right? Are my parents going to find out about it? And at that moment, I really thought, okay, I may not be able to drive, to work. I may not be able to keep my job. I may not keep my, the woman that I love. My parents are going to be disappointed in me. I'll never be able to serve in my church again. And all these things are just hitting me. And I can't tell you, when you're at that bottom, how it felt for me just to know that there's only one person I can turn to right now, and that's God. And never before in my life can I say that I woke up every morning, drove into work, and just prayed the entire time. I couldn't think of another time in my life prior to that where that's what I did. But I needed God at that point, and I knew that the only way this was all going to work out is if some miracle He stepped in and helped me and softened hearts of those around me. And he really did. I mean, I could tell you so many different little things that happened, like like calling someone, asking for some help in this particular situation, some legal help, and getting a no, right? And then 10 minutes later, my phone rings. The person's calling me back and saying, "Hey, I've been thinking about it.
Okay, I gotta do it.
I really want to help you." I mean, I don't know how else to explain stuff like that.
You just knew God changed their heart.
God was intervening on my behalf at that point. So that, I think that people that grow up in the church sometimes, they stray away from God because, just like we just talked about, they haven't had to rely on him. They haven't had to seek him for something because they're not at their lowest. And sometimes we don't feel like we need help until
well, and
we
I
have
don't
no
like
other
the
options.
way I don't like God's rules. I want to go do this. This is more fun.
Yes. And that's exactly where I was.
So I know that you don't want to go into specifics because it's too hard to be that open, but is there anything that you can say? Because we do have watchers that are young people. And is there some way you can be more specific without being as totally specific as, bearing your entire soul? Is there anything that you can, like there's one person watching that needs to know a little bit more. What would you tell that one person?
I would say that especially when you're in high school or the decisions you make to go out with your friends on a Friday night and to drink or do drugs or whatever it is, they seem like little things.
It's not going to hurt anybody.
It's not going to hurt anybody. It's fun. I feel cool. It makes me feel grown up. Those decisions stay with you years later. And maybe you get through it without repercussions, from police or parents or whatever it is, but those decisions still stay with you. And they'll have ramifications later on that you couldn't even comprehend. The other thing I would say is that, everything you do, think about your future wife. When you're making decisions to date somebody or whatever it is, just think about, what if I had to share this with my future wife 10 years from now? Now, how would that make her feel? I think that's... Yeah.
So what was it like when you had to share those things with Megan? You had to tell her this stuff before you even probably proposed. You had to get real with her.
It was very tough. There's some things where I think she said, I just, just don't worry about that. Don't tell me that. I don't want to know. But there's other things that, I just had to be very clear on and that she needed to know. And, I'm amazed at how much grace she had for me and how much grace she continues to have for me now. We've known each other for 14 years, been married for 6, going on 6. And it's just the fact that we were able to go from where we were and the heartache that I had to share with her and the things I've gone through to just being best friends. I feel like it's just strengthened us in our bond so much. And I feel like we have something that other people don't have because we were able to work through those issues when we were younger. So...
Yeah, I gotta say, the grace that she gives you, that's not Megan.
I know.
That's God.
I know.
He fills her with that. You're pretty special, and she is too. So thanks for sharing. Anyway, all right, Facebook, you got me all crying again. Thanks for watching. If you want to connect with David and ask him more, if you're a young person or someone his age or my age, whatever, and you want to know more, messages. I know he'll go have coffee with you, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
And if you know somebody else that needs to tell their story about why and how they're following Jesus, we want to get them here on the couch and let them tell their story because their story is different and it's going to minister to a different person that's watching. Sorry, I'm totally dripping now.
Okay.
Anyway, have a great weekend, Facebook. We love you. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Thank you. I'm sorry. They just all came out.
Sorry.